Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now. By Jackson Aurelia. Jackson Aurelia. Gonna proc it now. Gonna proc it now. Proc it. Jackson Aurelia. T-Force.
Welcome to the rework of the T-Force. Now we going hard cause we bumping at the beat source. It's a 3-course dinner of dudes bringing the news and stats, interviews and casts from the pro scene. So fresh and so clean, like you're leaning with Nami in the bot lane. Keep it hot like brand, practicing his dot game. Give it to you easy like you're Resi in a bot game. Imagine Draven at prime time. Now ulti like LeBlanc can copy that 4 times, but manlier. Knock it up like Malphite planning a family-er. You gotta be tuned in like Sona on the ad wall. Get on the chat call. Can a podcast really be all that? Of course. How do 4 guys make a Triforce?
Hey guys, welcome to Trinity Force Podcast. My name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell, and I am your host for this lovely evening, joined by 3 great guys tonight. First and foremost, Claude is here.
Howdy.
Chira is here.
Hey.
And our buddy Chris Alpheenar from episode number 239. He works at you don't work for Mind Games GG. You volunteer for, with Weldon?
I work with, yeah, it's his site. I just help contribute at times.
Yeah, so Chris Alpheenar, he joined us at episode 239 with Weldon Green. You may remember that episode. We had lots of great feedback about it. I think I forwarded some of it onto you guys. If I didn't, I need to get it over to you just so you can see it 2 months later. But we decided to bring him back again to talk about League of Legends and psychology and actually Battle Arena Smackdown Edition and everything, because he played in it. We allowed him to play in it so that he could get better and also give us some feedback on how it went from, a different aspect than what we could give. But before we get into all that, before we really start talking to Chris, I have to run down the normal announcements that everyone's used to. First and foremost, if you'd like to help donate to the podcast, trinityforcepodcast.com/donate. All your donations help to keep the server running and, keep us afloat and pushing forward as a business and be able to get all these podcasts out to you. Announcement number 2, Sheen Procs is back. If you guys want to check that out, I'm going to be releasing them on the LCS Rundown feed. What Sheen Procs is a interview series from the LCS. We're going to be posting that on YouTube and as a podcast format. Tim Walker and Ricky Flores is going to be... I think I said his last name. I apologize, Ricky, if I said your last name wrong. They are going on to the NALCS every single week and interviewing pros, and those are going to get tossed on the YouTube with like a nice overlay, and they're going to get pushed out as a podcast. So I'm going to give you the exact information on how to subscribe to that, but for now they're going to be released on the LCS Rundown feed. So if you want more Sheen Procs, you want more interviews, you want NALCS interviews, the Trinity Force Network is going to bring them to you. So there's that. And then the last announcement that I have for this week is actually on Wednesday we talked about releasing a new t-shirt, and much to Optimus Tom's surprise, it got released today.
It has been revealed.
So teespring.com/TForcePoppy. There is a Optimus Poppy t-shirt now for $20. It says Optimus Poppy. It's the hammer. It's got the Poppy hair.
Horns. Hair.
It's got the Poppy hair, and it says Optimus Poppy, and it says Poppy in the middle of the hammer.
It's Poptimus Tom.
Yep.
Yeah,
he loves it.
These ones are a little more expensive because they do have a design on the back. They have the logo and the URL for the Trinity Force Podcast on the back of the shirt. And that's why they're just a little more, but you actually have more options this time because we heard what you guys had to say. You said you wanted more options, you wanted more colors, you wanted a logo on the back, you wanted hoodies. So go there. There's yellow, pink, black, and purple, if I remember correctly. And there is also hoodies with like 3 colors, and there's the women's tees, of course, if you don't want to wear them in. But I've worn the shirts. They're American Apparel shirts. They're 100% cotton. And they're super, super comfortable. And I already ran mine through the wash once, and it got tumble dried and everything, and it hardly shrunk at all. So they're really good quality t-shirts, guys. These things are going to last a while. Unfortunately, DeClaude does not have his King DeClaude one yet.
Yeah, they lost it or something. I don't know. So
Adam's going to
fix it.
What's that?
Didn't I hear too that there's going to be like a reward if there's 50 of them sold?
Yeah,
that Tom's going to do something.
There's something about if we sell all 50 t-shirts, he will stream for a entire session. We'll say a session is 3 hours, but it could be as long as 6 to 12. Well, we haven't decided the length. It was kind of like one of those. I just tweeted it and he retweeted it. I was like, well, he agrees to it.
Nice.
But he's going to stream an entire session on the Trinity Force Podcast channel as Poppy if 50 of those are sold.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. So $20 plus the few bucks shipping, you can get one of those. It's teespring.com/TForcePoppy. And just so you guys know what the Teespring stuff, it's a 21-day campaign. So by the time you hear this, it'll be like 19 days left. If you order one now, it doesn't get charged on your card until day 22. So the day it ends, that's when your card actually gets charged. So if you order one early, make sure you keep those funds, always open, or use a credit card and pay for it so it gets charged later. Because we did have some people last time that thought it was going to get pulled out. We lost a few orders because of it.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, and that's just miscommunications, but everything's worked out. Teespring takes care of all that stuff. It's really good. So let's just go ahead and move right on here. We had Chris on. We started a little early tonight so we could really get into the meat and potatoes of this. As I previously mentioned, Chris, well, first of all, Chris, why don't you tell us who you are again, what you do, and everything so people are familiar with you.
All right, so I am a therapist at a mental health community mental health center, and I work with people that are struggling with, say, depression or anxiety or bipolar. Pretty much, it can be relationships that they want to work on. It can be anger. So something that I really like is just people and their behavior. So I also have been writing with Weldon Green about League of Legends, mainly soloqueue experience and kind of how emotions and mindset and the way that people handle their behavior in those games can be kind of seen through psychology as like some of it kind of makes sense and some of it could be improved upon in some ways that you can, just improve your own gameplay as well as also interact with others more effectively. So I've been playing games for a long time. So and League has really caught my eye for the last, I've been playing for 3 years. Because before I played Call of Duty pretty competitively, not like in tournaments and stuff, but like my people that I play with, and we'd have one time I think we won 160 some in a row, and so we were okay. But it was the difference between that and with League is that we just played team deathmatch. There wasn't as much objectives. There wasn't as much strategy involved because it was just team deathmatch and you just kind of ran around shooting people. So at least that was my perception. So now trying to get better myself as well as apply ways to improve at the game, something I really, really enjoy. So.
Yeah, and I think this game, League of Legends, just because it's so team oriented and it's not a whole bunch of people where you can actually be kind of a hero. Somebody can die a bunch of times, doesn't really matter. But League of Legends, somebody's feeding, that's 1/5 of your entire team. They're going to chances. So
definitely,
the mental fortitude needed.
Because you're, like you said, your deaths impact other people, and so then they're going to respond. Whereas in Call of Duty, then it was more. At the end of the game, you kind of saw who was bad and who wasn't. You went on, and it was 5-10 minutes, pretty quick turnaround. In the League, it has a lot more impact, and at least I believe it does. And so it's people take it personally more, and people have more chance to tell somebody because it's especially if you're losing how much they suck, and then that can kind of spike off into a bunch of different things.
You're stuck in a room with a bunch of strangers for 20 to 45 minutes or, to an hour sometimes.
Minimum 20, unless you AFK, but then there wasn't any repercussions when it came to Call of Duty. I'm playing my Xbox. People dashboard all the time to keep their KDAs up. At least back when I played, then they did. and so somebody left and they would just try to, they wouldn't have to internalize that loss because they could just get rid of it scot-free, no stats harmed. Whereas in League, then there's a lot more that's impact. You can't really do that sort of a thing. Right. So,
well, let's talk about. We'll start with the ballerina stuff because that's what triggered to get you on here. Plus, I want to start talking more about psychology because I think that'll open up a giant discussion as well. Because last time we had talked about doing the Ballerina Smackdown Edition, and for those of you who may be unaware, you paid money, you played the game against higher level players, they give you feedback, and they try to make you better. That's the TLDR version of what this was. And Chris had expressed interest in it, and so I said, yeah, sure, give us a donation, we'll get you in here. So he paid the money, he sent the money to the podcast, and he played the games. And the reason I keep bringing the money thing up is because I want to talk about that a little more, because I really want you, because that was a piece of a paper you wrote. And, he played in the games, played 2 that night, came back later, wrote a whole paper on his experience, a write-up on his experience at Ballerina Smackdown, posted on the subreddit, and that prompted us to bring you on. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about it, talk about your experience, what you learned, and, we can go from there, and I'll ask you a couple questions while we're going through it.
Sounds good. So a lot of it was, I've known that I'm not very good at this game, right? So I understand the concepts, I understand how to do it. Just my ability to either implement it or even understand how to improve was something I really wanted to be able to have. And so that's why I really was drawn to this, because I wanted to get better, not just in my understanding of the social aspect, but also the actual gameplay. So when I played, then I was a couple things. Like Adam had mentioned that. Paying for something was a big part of this. And I told him I thought that was really wise of you guys to do that, because it's been shown through the research and stuff that what somebody pays for, they're much more likely to actually invest. They're whether personally invest in, right? Because if it was something free, something that A might not show up because they're like, it's not that big of a deal, or B, then they may just they might have a whole different thing instead of wanting to learn. Then they may decide that they're just going to show everybody else because there really aren't they're not investing anything of themselves, right? So that was a big part that I thought was really important because it allowed people to take ownership, saying this is something I want, rather than this is something I'm just kind of doing just because I feel like it. So that ownership is huge, to be able to be open to actually wanting to change things that you're taught in the game. And so when I played, then I was with, let me look, because I'm going to forget their actual names. I don't want to mess them up. So Crazy Villains and the Squisher X, they were really cool. And so because I went top lane, and then after those games, then the information that they gave me was really good. And even when they were telling me things, then I could still I'm human too, and I still, and even though I'm a psychologist, then I still wanted to be like, wait a second, I wanted to have a little, I was still fighting denials and things, right? It's not like this is something
excuses for it, right?
Yeah, or oh, I knew that already, that kind of stuff. And I had to kind of choke that down because I recognized that that's just, me trying to fight,
Rationalize.
rationalize, and my ego, what I felt like was me. I didn't want it to be harmed in some way. So I'm trying to have all these defense mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. But then I was like, what, this is what I want. And I want to be able to learn these things. And so basically, given that information, I was able to, I thought I saw some improvement of myself, at least in some areas, from game 1 to game 2. They had mentioned that too, but there's still other things I still obviously did wrong in game 2. So I think that having the opportunity to be given information and apply it was also really important too in that game.
Yeah, because they went through a whole bunch of little things. They went from anything from map awareness, you should have seen this happening, to you should have used a potion to start the trade off. And I remember that piece highlighted to me right there.
Yeah.
Were you coached and then you played another game afterwards so you could apply what you learned?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was one of the things that with the I can remember specifically, because I remember he said I did a good job that second time, was the level 9
positive reinforcement.
Right, exactly. Level 9, making sure I get the trinket as quickly as possible, upgrading it because it's so gold efficient. And there've been times in the past when I was like, I'll just wait. And so I saw immediately in that second game the benefits of having it so quickly. Whereas prior to that, it was just kind of like I don't really know if I should. I don't know what's the best choice there. So, and then same thing with the pot. I'm still not very good at it. I've been practicing it since I think it was almost a week and a half ago. Then I've been practicing it, trying to get better at being able to do that when I play with my friends and stuff. But that's still something that's going to take time, which is part of this learning process, right? I get all this information, but it doesn't mean that all of a sudden instantly everything changes. Same thing in therapy for me. When I talk to people, I can give them information, but they still have to apply it. It still takes time. You got to unlearn bad behaviors and then replace them with better ones.
Right.
So going through this event, you found that you found, well, one, that because you paid for it, you paid more attention to it. Two, you felt like you had to get something out of what you put in. Correct?
Yeah.
Now, from a psychological aspect, or from from your point of view, for the players that are just doing normal battle arena, is there anything that they can specifically do, since they're only investing their time?
Right.
Do you feel there's anything people can do to try to feel like they're getting everything out of it, since it's not a one-on-one type of thing?
I mean, you could impose things on yourself. Like if I'm teaching somebody in therapy or giving them ideas for how to change their behavior, something I might tell them if this was a therapy situation would be, think of something that you enjoy and tie that in with whatever you're doing. So let's do it with battle arena. So if it's without the money, then you could say you love to watch a TV show. Well, what you could do is if I don't take away X amount of things from this battle arena experience, I'm going to take away from myself that TV show for that week or whatever it could be. It's going to take a lot of self discipline and to be able to do something like that, because you're the only one that can keep yourself accountable. It's not like someone's taking something from you, but setting those things up to make sure that you remind yourself, because then you may even not even remember the first time, and that's going to be the big ticket as to whether or not you're actually going to grab hold of this. Because if you actually take that away from yourself, it's going to be such a big reminder next time that damn, I really didn't like that. I need to make sure that I have 2 goals myself that I take from this next time. That way, I'm not, not using this time wisely. So that's an idea.
Right. Yeah, I was just trying to think of ways that other people could use your experience here at Battle Arenas, because I don't know the next time SmackDown's going to come around, to be honest.
Right.
Everybody's out there listening. And that, but when you were playing the game, now that you've played this game and you've gone into solo queue with some of these ideas, have you seen the way that you act toward other players change? Because I know since we talked on 239, I've had a good experience. I've had a terrible experience where I know I got reported, and and I've had everything in between, where we're just listening to your guys' thoughts on solo queue and how you should act and everything that we've said resonating. That have you noticed any changes in how you've been playing the game recently, since 239, since Battle Arena, since etc.
For me, I think a big thing I noticed was that I respect my opponent more, that doesn't really go into like the raging stuff that we could talk about later, but that's something that I really noticed was something that I didn't do. Here's something that I think is interesting. So I think that there can be like 2 sides of the spectrum when it comes to when from this, like you can either A, not trust yourself at all, or B, trust yourself too much. And me personally, I know like even when looking back when I played basketball in high school, then I was afraid to shoot the ball because I didn't want to hurt my team. Like I could go to a whole boring story about how things that I learned now, that how my mindset impacted the way I played, right? So I know I'm usually pretty coachable. Like that's something that I do too, and it's not to a fault, because I sometimes take information that isn't appropriate and apply it to myself because I just believe people too soon. So
I do that too.
Do you? Okay. So in my games, then it's good for when I know that the information is valid. But when the information isn't necessarily valid, that's when you can run into problems. So in my game, then I knew that if I respected my opponent more effectively, I was going to be better. And I've had a couple wins recently that was because of that. I made sure that I actually focused on the things I was taught and then was able to apply to that. Now, I think a lot of times when it comes to like the raging aspect, then that's usually when we have a belief about ourselves or about our own gameplay, and we want to believe that we're good. And then when it doesn't turn out the way that we want it to, then it's either we have a couple choices. We can point to somebody else, which may be the truth sometimes, or we'd have to kind of go internal and look to see what we could have changed. And we don't always like that. Like that's something that can really feel uncomfortable, because that could be saying that, feeling like I made a mistake. You could say I'm a failure. A lot of internal thought that you may not consciously recognize, and you may just feel like you may just not want to deal with that. So you just kind of project it onto other people, and then just start lashing out onto whoever it could be, like in the actual game.
Right. And I'm actually gonna lean on Chira here in a couple minutes, so I'm hoping he's paying attention. I know he's chatting and he's chatting away, but I know he's got quite a bit to talk about psychology, because we had some stuff that we wanted to run over since the last time. Chira, if you remember some of those questions as well, kind of start racking your brain. But I want to ask. Yeah.
I was going to say, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
In the games, I didn't have a chance to watch them because I was at work. Did you see any of that from the players? Any kind of blaming or a little passive aggressive comments, anything like that at all?
I didn't notice it with my group of people. Saying everyone's really, really nice. I thought maybe it was kind of the other end, like I was talking about with being too open to things. Like an example I wrote in the article was that I didn't trust myself to take. I put Pantheon top second game, right? I didn't trust myself to take Ignite. I said I went teleport because I figured I was going to be behind in lane because they were better than me, and that was something that I doubted in myself. And in fact, I actually learned less because after the game, they told me I should take an Ignite, and why didn't I take Ignite, and those sort of things. So I explained myself, but they said, you should have sold them anyways, because the lane pressure would have been huge. And then I thought to myself, I kind of gave up an opportunity to learn, because I doubted myself, and when instead I could have learned an appropriate way to play that champion, and then the mistakes I could have made, then I would have learned even more from, because now I'm going to go into a game, play him top, because I like playing him, and I may not have be able to apply some of the information that they would have given me if I would have played them correctly. Mm-hmm. So I found. Go ahead.
I also want to say too that it might have been a situation as well where people going into a game where they know that they're going up against people that on paper should outclass them in lane or anything like that, like you kind of also go into a game with sort of a self-defeating mentality of I'm not supposed to win, so I'm not going to. I mean, it's the same thing where like in actual sports, I mean, coming from a kickboxing background, the whole like mentally prepping yourself was the moment that you think you can lose is the moment you lost.
Yeah.
So like,
oh, you can mentally defeat yourself.
Yeah,
before you go into the
it's
game.
that whole thing, and it's funny because looking from at least for Group B, you were in Group A, correct?
No, he was in Group B.
Wait, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were. Okay,
Yeah.
you were in Group B. All right. Yeah. So in Game 2, in like Game 1 in Group B, didn't go super hot for you guys. Game 2, I think you got first blood on whoever you were laning against. Which
The
think
hacker.
yeah, I'm pretty sure whoever you were playing top lane. So you got first blood on whoever like you were playing against at that time. Which on paper
That's
you
a huge
probably
achievement.
shouldn't have done, but that's really good. Like, so it's one of those things like. Don't go into a game just arrogant as all hell thinking you're gonna smack down people, but at the same time,
Or the other way around.
don't go into a game thinking, oh, people are better than me, so I'm gonna do poorly, when realistically you just have to kind of keep a level head when you go to play.
Yeah, it's one
Otherwise,
of
like,
those, whether you think you can or can't, you're right.
yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right. And the way, for some of you that might not know, the way we did Battle Arena for both sides, they weren't allowed to use voice chat during it. They had to play in their own head.
I think that was a good idea.
Yeah, I think the games would have been totally different if both sides could use voice chat. Specifically the Platinum and Diamonds, like they would have just wrecked and walked
Well,
over.
I mean,
but
look
Death
at
and everything.
you could for anybody who wants or can go back and look at any of those games. The
should be
Plat
on
and
YouTube.
Diamond, the Plat and Diamond players,
should watch 'em.
a big piece of why they succeeded so well was because they just organized on their own. Like when they got in the game, like the point in the game changed. In game 1, bronze and silvers and low golds or whoever was playing got Smackdown eventually after laning phase ended or anything like that. Game 2, at least for Group B, because I got to watch Group B, so I was paying more attention to that. The lower elo players held their own till the grouping began, and then the Plat and Diamonds just happened to group sooner because they knew the flow of the game a little bit better. And it became a situation where it looked way more like solo queue on the part of the lower elo team, and then the more experienced players are like, well, we're just going to roam around in a group of 3 or 4 or 5 roaming kill squad and just pick people off that aren't, either warding or paying attention or just out farming, not safely. Like,
Well, I played,
and that's experience.
Yeah, I played on my Smurf the other day, who he ended last season silver something. I don't know what he was. So he's still in his placements. I played with a listener. I was actually hardcore on tilt that day. So hardcore on tilt that I was like, I need to go smack down in chat. I literally typed, I need to go smack down some noobs who wants to duo queue. I'm getting on my alt. And then I won the game. Like it was an easy game. I gave the guy some free LP that I was playing with. But I noticed the big thing with the bronze or the silver players, bronze, silver, whoever I was playing with, I don't know, that nobody grouped. Like I was telling people, we need to group right now. You go here, you push top, I'm gonna split push this. Everyone's like, I'm gonna go do this.
Yeah.
They kind of just walked around and randomly did their thing. So if you're not carrying, if you're not carrying yourself in these games, no one's gonna follow you, and it sucks. You have to keep trying to tell you. You can tell people, and they're gonna follow you. They'll go to dragons when you tell them, like 1 minute dragon. They might group up, but when it really comes to getting people to push down that lane, you have to take it under your belt to play the best you can with the odds and stuff that you've been given.
I still don't like Smurfs. I'm glad you're getting insight from those other things, but the whole idea of Smurfs is so deceitful and just, for the people who actually live down there are trying to climb. It's
I've
like,
told that story before. Why? Because I wanted to see what it was like.
Right.
So it was 2 years ago when I pushed it down there, and I was the toxic guy 2 years ago that killed my account. Yada yada.
I feel like a jerk on the other end of that because somebody will be like, oh, just make a new account so you can play with us as we learn and all this other stuff. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna throw you into the fire and you get who you get when you group with me.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
that you'll learn quicker. You'll either you'll quit, which probably isn't gonna happen, and then
because there should be other Smurfs.
right, or B, you'll just play until you get so upset that you end up having to figure stuff out, or you're just not gonna have fun until then.
Well, let's talk about solo queue. What we have control over in solo queue, what we can change in solo queue, from both in game, from the T-Force perspective, and from Chris's perspective. Chris, if you want to go, do you have anything you want to go with, or I can go ahead and start talking?
What? Go ahead, and then I'll just jump in a little bit.
Okay. Well, this is going to come from playing the other day, playing on my main, which like I said, I primarily play on.
Right.
I played a plat. I'm trying to do that, climb the diamond. I was playing in the middle of a whatever platinum game, and I had a game where we actually lost on load before the first 15 seconds. That game lost itself because our team comp was just absolutely just terrible, awful before we got in there. And I was already on tilt, and I was like, oh my god, I can't, if we don't win this for 20 minutes, rip in peace us, rip us or something. And Wrecker ended up feeding first blood at like 2 minutes, and it was totally by accident.
Scumbag.
And then I died. Then Shaco came down and he died, and I tried to follow up with Shaco to like recover something out of it, and I died. So there's 3 deaths before like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then the Twisted Fate goes off on us, and then it was just the whole time. And I raged in the game. I raged hard, and it forced people to actually want to quit. And what happened was the argument came down to they didn't want me to win. They were ready to sacrifice the LP, their own hard work, their hours and hours of time to get them to that.
Because you don't deserve the win.
Because one person, quote unquote, doesn't deserve the win.
Right.
They don't look at it as if they deserve the win anymore. They are so
the other people
hell-bent and vindictive, trying to be vindictive, that they want to stop me from getting the LP. And I tried to reason, but you can't reason in the middle of the game.
I was about to say, half the time, just typing something to try and reason with them just adds more fuel to the fire. Like, they get more upset that you're trying to bring logic into this situation. They're like, well, nope, now I'm just going to even clamp up a little bit harder.
It's text, too, so is it sarcastic?
Yeah. Exactly. That happened to me it was like I still remember this was like 2 years ago, and it was a Lee Sin, and he wanted us all to group, but we were doing really well split pushing because we had I can't remember if it was a Trinity or somebody, and we were we had him open, and he was like, this is not working, this is not how you play the game, and then he said, if you guys don't group now, I'm going to throw the game, I'm just not going to play, and we were like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you guys are such noobs, you don't know how to play, this is ridiculous, and then eventually he's like, all right, I'm done, and then we're like, what? So we're like, okay, whatever, we'll group. He's like, nope, I'm already done. I'm done. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Is he's so vindictive? Oh my gosh, I still get pretty pissed off just thinking about it.
I had somebody do that similar threat thing to me a while back. I was playing a mage mid, and he was jungling, and there was a time where I had lost a lot of health and mana, so I couldn't really. And the lane was pushing against the enemy turret, so I went to go kill the raptors. And I killed the raptors. He said, if you take any of my camps again, I'm quitting.
Oh, wow.
So, I was like, well, that's kind of lame. I just took your raptors, but whatever. So then I took them again, and then he AFK'd. So I couldn't help it. I was like, I shouldn't take them. I should give the baby his bottle.
The beast.
Right.
I should give him his pacifier. But I got pissed. I was like,
you can't.
How dare he? So let me go take him.
It runs into this situation where no matter what ranking you're at, you run into that stuff eventually.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're plat, diamond, bronze 5, wherever.
They had a bad day.
If people think the grass is greener on the other side, there isn't another side. It's shit everywhere. And you get to the point where you just gotta have to realize you're gonna run into shitheads every once in a while. It's just kind of the luck of the draw with that sort of situation. I was in a game the other day where this guy got grouped with somebody from his last game that he didn't like. So he first picks Heimer jungle, goes full AD. It was a 4v5 basically the entire game. He died at his second buff. So it's like you can't control that sort of thing. And not every game is winnable. So sometimes you just got to chalk up the fact that you're probably going to lose that game, play through it anyway. And even if you lose, and this is a situation where I run in. I don't like surrendering, it's funny. I stopped surrendering way more when I started playing with Declawed all the time. But my reasoning for not surrendering anymore is I just look at it as practice as learning how to play from behind because I'm already playing from behind.
Right.
So it's just one of those situations where well, that's it. Okay, we're not going to win, but what if we did?
I want to
Or
adjust.
like
I want to adjust what you said. Not every game is winnable. Let's change that to you don't win every game, but I think every game has the potential to be won. Adam was saying before you lost it in Champ Select. There's no way they were going to win. You're in solo queue. Anything could happen. They could have that guy. You take my jungle, I'm quitting. The AFK,
Right.
whatever the case may
that
be.
can happen. I've seen
Right.
it happen.
Exactly. So it's there's always a chance, and regardless, you're in the game, you're stuck there. You have your champion that you picked. Learn it. Practice your champion. Try to do different things. And like Chi-Chi was saying, you're practicing playing from behind on that champion, so you're getting something out of it. And for me, I queue to play. I want to play. I'm not there to try to grind out LP by doing some mathematical equation. Okay, if I surrender every game that I know might lose, I'll have a better chance of getting LP if I play this string of games. Because, for one, I can't. I have a limit of games before my hands become completely immobile, so I need to make the most out of every game, and I will stay in there and try to win it, regardless. That's one of the reasons why. But I think every game has the potential to be won in solo queue. Now, team games, like in the professional scene, where you're 5v5 and something goes wrong, it's a lot harder to come back in that case. But with this new meta, if you've been watching the LCS, there have been some crazy comebacks. In the old days where it was, oh, okay, this is another Smash game. There's no way they're coming back. And all of a sudden, oh, holy crap, it's a comeback. And it gets exciting for our spectators.
Well,
it can happen. So.
You can chalk a lot of that up potentially to just the meta shift towards the tank meta anyway, just because they become so much more powerful as the game goes on, because they become unkillable. And if you pick an early game champion to try and win the game quickly and you don't, and they picked Scion or somebody who's going to scale well in the late, not going to have a great time.
Didn't we discuss too, like the power spikes aren't as big of a deal anymore in this meta?
Right.
Well,
right, Adam, we were saying that if the
but
late game is more important.
We've pushed a little far off topic here, and I want to bring this back in. That,
Reel it back in.
we need to reel this back in from normal T-Force discussion back into getting
Sounds
Chris here engaged a bit. I actually would like, Chira, I know you had a few questions about psychological prep for games, especially. Probably more for Weldon, but I'm sure Chris can.
Chris, you looked into the sports hypnotism, right? Or do you remember any of that?
A little bit, but I don't really remember a lot about it.
Okay,
More so. Go ahead.
No,
You're getting very sleepy kind of thing, with a little.
No. I had a question which I shouldn't have probably sprung this on him now, but it's whatever. We can come back to that another time.
So you're not asking the question now?
No.
I mean, let Chris talk. Go ahead. Chris.
If he's not going to be able to answer it I'd rather it be a thought out thing than him just spitball at something.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't have a lot of knowledge in terms of hypnotism. The guy that did my supervision for I was under him during my provisional license. Then he was kind of big into it. So I meant to ask him for you, but I forgot.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. We'll come back to that. To that.
One thing that I think is interesting is that, and this is something that I told him a while ago. So if you listen to this, well, then I'm sorry that's not done yet. That I'm writing about is how different defense mechanisms and how they kind of apply to solo queue.
Gotcha.
And one thing I'm hearing one thing I think is one of the biggest defense mechanisms that can be used is projection, where we can take what we feel and the emotions that we have, and then we, like, maybe it's at work, we're having a bad day, right? And or it's a relationship issue, and we haven't really dealt with those emotions because we don't really want to take it out on that person by saying or doing whatever. So we do it instead in a safer environment. And the internet is like one of the safest because there's so much. Everyone's anonymous, right?
Right.
And there's no repercussions for the most part, except for maybe somebody else responding in a very similar way. So I think a lot of times what we experience in solo queue, well, I think what it could be is that people are taking their emotions out that they don't feel safe doing with other people. So that can happen. Think about like the time when you get cut off by a guy that's driving like 150 miles an hour. He's probably pissed off with somebody else, or maybe you get pissed off, and then because of that, you take it out on someone that you care about. Like
right.
That's what I think can really spiral a lot of the solo queue flame out of control, because people may use this as a coping skill. I play because I want to just decompress. Like I just want to kind of relax. And probably part of the reason why I don't always do that well because I'm playing
yeah.
to
have fun.
right. And
Yeah,
and
to
so
relax.
God forbid.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Play a
I know,
game to
right?
have fun.
Right. But I'm also so freaking competitive that I get mad at myself. So I try to. Anyways, the point is that uh, I think a lot of that behavior can be because we're taking things out on people that we feel safe taking it out on.
Right. I don't know why this kind of popped up. Like I just had this thought, but in a way, I think it's kind of interesting because I don't know why I just had this sort of epiphany, but in a situation where somebody's getting stomped really, really hard in a 1v1 sort of setting, like say that Riven crushes whoever's in lane and then people start bad mouthing the dude who's dying.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the personification of victim blaming at its finest because they're on the receiving end of something that they have no control over for the
Right.
most part. If they're trying to play safe and they just keep getting crushed or they feel helpless and then everybody's making them feel even worse. So they're just going to
Yeah.
perform way worse
It's just-
anyway.
yeah, snowballing.
It's
the
a
wrong
cast.
way.
Yeah. It's a super just terrible.
Well, I
You
was
were saying, Chris, you were saying before how the lack of consequence is kind
Right.
of what
Yeah.
makes people more comfortable in being toxic. It just reminded me of a situation. I was driving as a young teenager, really, really fast on back roads, and I had my friend with me, and we just passed this Crown Victoria. It was brown, so we didn't think it was a cop, but it was. And my buddy's leaning out the window. He says, "Learn to drive, asshole!" Haha, being toxic. And then, of course, the lights come on and he got pulled over. Oh, he never did that again. So I think that's the whole idea of the tribunal and the banning system. It's try to give some kind of consequence, but it's not harsh enough. Or
well,
Okay.
Riot Lyte actually talked about that. I think his name's Jeffrey Lynn. He's in charge of.
Lynn.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he did this whole it was like a half-hour VOD, and at this conference that he was at for, and talked about this, and it was really, really interesting. I would encourage anyone to look it up. I think he posted it on his Twitter if you're looking for it, and he talked about how there were studies done in the past where with Halloween, and there was a group of kids that the TLDR is that the kids that were anonymous, then by themselves individually, took like 14% or something like that more candy when they were given the opportunity to, and the kids as a group that were anonymous, it went up to like 30-some%. So, and using that as kind of a way to see that, same thing with the internet, and just kind of showing that when there's a lot of, group mentality, even same thing in solo queue, when there's that one person that you get to pick on because they're not doing well, one, then somebody else may jump on them. And then two, you may fear that person that's being angry and toxic is going to maybe jump on you if you make a mistake too.
Yeah.
So now you're like, I'm on board with this guy, right? Because you don't want to be the one that's.
Let me show him on his side. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on his side. So yeah, of course that whoever it is a horrible player, because that way it takes the opportunity for that light to be shined on you away, because now you're buds with the toxic guy.
That's
Now,
the whole
I will
high school
say-
mentality.
I will say I've seen that same situation where somebody gets on the toxic guy's side to start talking smack, and then they do something bad and the toxic dude turns around, and you can almost see the soul crushing hurt in the person who
Right?
like teamed up with him, because it's like everything that I didn't want to happen just happened, and now you're raging at me and I don't know what to do anymore.
Well,
thought I was
use
the-
this as an opportunity. I want to say there has to be something here with like disarming the situation as the person. If you're the person who's fed, there has to be a way for you to disarm the situation and make it better for yourself. Because no one wants to admit they've done wrong. Like you said earlier, you had that self-defense mechanism pop up when people were saying that thing. But when you recognize that there was something you did wrong, there's something that you should use this as a learning opportunity. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to discuss well, I don't know if it's a technique or you could talk it as a technique, but I did see the other day, I saw a Riven actually who got stomped on, not the Riven who won, Riven lost, and she actually typed out, "I'm sorry, I fed early, I'm trying to do my best to get back into this game,
Right.
Thanks for understanding," or something like that. Like if someone was giving her shit, and she basically typed out and said, I know I'm doing
Admitted
wrong.
it.
And
Yeah.
she
Well, when you
admitted
do that,
Instead of
it
getting
kind of
defensive. Yeah.
takes the wind out of their sails, because
Right?
it's like,
Exactly.
it's not like they're trying to convince you that you did bad anymore. Like,
Yeah.
what? They're just gonna keep reinforcing something that, like, if they're not a complete moron, they don't have an argument to keep, like, in their own mind to keep talking smack to you, other than just being straight up mean, which very well might be the case.
And if you
But-
don't want to type out that whole thing, just type MB. You
Yeah.
just owned up to it real quick. My bad.
Just like, I fucked up. Sorry.
Motherboard.
I've been adding that to my gameplay a lot more too, and people see like getting ahead of the flaming. That can be really big. That way, if you own up to it, like you said, it's going to disarm them. They're not going to be able to like. That's right. Like, what else are they going to say?
Exactly.
Yeah, you validated me.
Yeah,
Wait.
that's right. You admit that you fucked up.
Exactly.
Dick.
I agree with you so hard.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, I lost my train of thought here because I was gonna continue on that train.
Before
Go ahead.
we while you're thinking about
It'll
that
come
or
back.
whatever, I also want to bring up with like punishment when it comes to like going back and looking at the taking of more candy for the Riot Lyte example we used earlier. They're like in criminology, one of the first things that they teach when it comes to like how effective punishment is when it comes down to actually doling something out is that it isn't the severity of a punishment that keeps people from doing a typical behavior. It's how sure a person is that they're actually going to be punished.
Right.
So like it isn't about severity, it's about certainty. So if people think that they're going to get in trouble because they do something that's taboo, or they do something that's going to be looked down upon, or they're doing something that could potentially get their chat restricted because they got that little warning saying that if you keep acting like a dickhead, you're not going to be able to talk to other people, probably going to say less stuff. And if they keep doing it and they get like chat restricted or banned or whatever else, probably not likely to do it again afterwards because they don't want to keep getting in trouble. Because like, I don't know that many people who've been chat restricted multiple times. I know a couple people who've been chat restricted and they haven't been a problem since. But I would love, I wish we got Riot Lyte on to talk about this, but I really want to know the numbers behind like how the changes that they've implemented have actually gone into.
He gave a little bit of
influence.
a diagram in that video. It looked
Okay.
like he gave some some dot points. I'm not sure what the actual term of it's called, but like how things kind of from like a toxic experience, how it can lead to more toxic experience. But what he said they found was that good experiences actually lead to even more good experiences, which is really helpful. And he said that having that individual, like having to own it as an individual, like the things you did wrong, then that can also really curb some of that behavior, if I remember it right. Because he was saying that taking away that feeling of being anonymous can then cause you to own some of the things that you did and then maybe consider changing it. Kind of like lately it's been annoying for me because like I don't ever try to leave on purpose. Like I just hate that kind of stuff. And so
Right.
I was having some computer issues, and so then like after the game, like I try to log back in, log back out, that kind of stuff. And then I had like a lever buster, and it's like and so it's asking me like, I will not leave anymore to games, blah blah blah. Do you
Right.
agree? I'm like,
I
yes,
agree.
I agree. But even then I'm just like, I don't want to say this because I want to own this.
Yeah.
Because I don't
Right.
feel like, you know what I mean? But like then if somebody's doing it inappropriately, then that could be a feeling that they have too, at least hopefully. And I think that's kind of what some of the system that they're trying to develop, and they've said that they're, really still, it's a work in progress, but taking away some of that ability just to say whatever you want and not having any
Right.
repercussions and having that.
The consequence, like just
Yeah.
having that pop up. Oh, somebody's watching.
Yeah,
Something
exactly.
worked in the system and noticed this. Oh crap! I better rein it in here.
From a pro perspective, I Will Dominate's one of those people who actually
Yeah.
he got
Yep.
restricted from
Oh,
being
yeah, he
professional
did.
for an entire year,
Yeah, I remember that.
and now look
His
at him.
wallet.
Yeah, well, you hit somebody's wallet hard. Now that's what I think is funny is there's a lot of people out here that
That's where it hurts.
there's a lot of people out here that are like, oh, you can ban me, I have another account, but you can't tell me that if you got your account taken away today and you had all these champions on it, that it wouldn't hurt, that you wouldn't be demoralized coming into your Smurf account that only has 6 champions rather than all 120 of them. I think this kind of turning into one of those things where we really need to get Riot Lyte on here to really talk to him, and I've been trying to work on getting that. But
Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think the takeaway that a lot of people should get out of this, and a lot of our conversation here, is that again, you're the only person that can affect anything. Chris? Do you remember the Aurelia discussion we had on 239? I'm trying to remember the exact scenario that we had brought up about I think Aurelia was winning until they lost the game for them.
Oh, yes, I do. Because like I think was it they kept split pushing and then like eventually, like she was doing really well and kept doing her thing, and then eventually she kept doing her thing to the point to where it wasn't working. And
Right.
then, right? Is that pretty much what
You
it was?
reinforced it so many times to the point where when it stopped working,
Then
things
they all
fell
blamed
apart.
her. Yeah, and they all blamed her again, even though she was what helped them get there in the first place. Is that kind of what it was?
Yeah,
That's what it was.
She was winning the game until she lost the game for them.
Yeah. Yep.
She was the pillar that.
But it was one of those
their house
things that
was built
like
on.
the behavior that led up to that point was behavior that was being reinforced the entire time. And then the one time it didn't work, everybody got mad. So it's
Yeah.
like it throws you kind of in this, I guess, like mental limbo of, well, I was doing something good and I don't know why it's bad now.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like solo queue was kind of, there's a lot of people that play have an opportunity to try to, I don't know, develop a lot of various coping skills with interacting with people. You know, like, and both whether it's positive or whether it's trying to be able to be okay with being told things that you don't like to hear. That's part of life. But we don't want to have to do that in a video game, right? Like we want to be able just to,
Right.
And so like if it's at a job, then maybe we'll deal with the boss treating us like crap. But in a video game, then we don't want to have to experience that. And so if we look at it, I think anyways, if we look at it as an opportunity to get better at other things, whether it's just handling stuff that you don't like, or being able to say something that's positive when normally you would just flash back at them, like those kind of things can apply to like real life too. Not that League is real life, I love League, but like, you know what I mean? Like things that what you can use when you go to exactly it is when you go to you know, interact with someone you care about, you know, someone they say something really crappy and you take it the wrong way, but then because the things that you've, you know, practiced by dealing with assholes, then you can take a step back and be like, wait a second, is that what they meant, or did they mean this possibly instead? Whereas before, maybe you would have taken it completely differently and then just ran with it in a way that you know, caused like a harm in that relationship. So just something else to think about when you're in solo queue is, you know, it's not just, it can be, if you want it to be, not just about getting better at League. It can be also about getting better at being able to deal with people in general.
That's
Just
a really good
developing
point.
better communication skills.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself since I've, you know, dealing with the internet ragers and assholes. It has actually changed a lot of stuff. And like I used to road rage all the time, you know, yelling at my car because I know no one can hear you. I wanted to carry bricks that said "learn to drive" on it and throw them out of the window at them. But you know, things like that to the point where like, you know, it flipped people off. Or I changed and I got to the point where I knew I would piss people off more if I just smiled and thumbs up after I cut them off, you know, and instead of flipping them off, you know, they're all mad and I'm like, yeah. But then I decided, okay, there's no point to that. So I stopped raging more and it's just a more comfortable commute now to work back and forth an hour each way. So it actually helps when you're in the thick of things.
Claude, I'm of the opinion this is terrible advice. No one listen to this. I'm telling you, everybody.
Why are you
don't-
saying it?
Because it's funny.
Let me hear it.
All right. In situations like that, and I tell Kayla this all the time because she road rages like a motherfucker. If you're going to yell at somebody, you better damn well make sure they pay attention to it, because if I have to sit through you yelling and they don't have to feel the repercussions of it, and I'm the only person in the car that has to even see how mad you are at it, you're doing it wrong. And I'll start honking the horn for you. Like, if you're going to go that far, you better go all the way.
Now, Chris, I do have a question for you here to kind of bring this toward, to wrap everything that we've talked about. And this might be going a little far-fetched, but I've talked to some people that have had problems in real life. They may be, you know, anger issues, problem coping skills, whatever. From being a psychologist, how do you feel that people, if they recognize they have a problem in League of Legends, can they take that and turn that into a problem in real life? And do you recommend that other people make time to see a psychiatrist? I mean, there's always feels like there's a lot of bad connotations or whatever around psychiatry, and that going to see someone means something's wrong. Is there something that you can say that help people to understand?
Oh man, this is like, man, you have another hour?
Yeah,
Because, like,
let's go. We got plenty. We seriously have plenty of time.
So it does, but so one of the things I do is I do mental health first aid. So a little shout out to them. Is where what we do is I'm a leader of that. I train people to be able to be first aiders in mental health, and it's really to try to break down stigma, allow people to recognize things. Like, for instance, one of the things I talk about in that group is we have a lot of times we could say, oh, that person's being bipolar. That person's bipolar, that person's, schizophrenic, that person's whatever. But we don't ever say that person's cancer. Like, we don't ever say that person's is cancer. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think you mentioned that maybe in that first time. And we have a lot of stigma about how a person is, and we apply that to them rather than it being an illness that they have. And, people, one of the stats they throw out is that it takes people 10 years, a median of 10 years to get mental health services. And so think about this is kind of a crazy example, but having the flu for 10 years and being okay with it. Cause you know what I mean? We wouldn't do that because it's physical health and we're okay with physical health. We're okay with our body not producing enough insulin. And so we get medication to be able to do that for diabetes, but we're not okay with our brain not being able to, gather enough serotonin, and then we feel depressed. And so if a person has depression medication, then they're crazy. To me, I don't see the difference. But I think it's just because, one, mental health is newer. So there's, a lot that people are still learning about. There's also been a lot of experiences that people have had that, where they can point to and say, well, this person did this and this and this. And so that all those things were, quote unquote, and I don't like this word, but crazy. And because of that, then now they are too. And oh man, I could go into a whole lot of things this. So go ahead.
You can even go and say people are just uncomfortable listening to other people bring up issues that haven't been talked about. It's not even, it's one of those situations where, at least from somebody from the US sort of perspective, everybody here is expected to individually be able to, that whole pull yourself from up by your own bootstraps sort of mentality. Yeah. Nobody wants to ask anybody else for help or ask anybody else's opinion because they're supposed to be able to do it on their own. So it becomes one of those situations where when somebody does want to talk to somebody else about it, they're either really, really embarrassed about it, or there's not an open forum for them to do it without feeling like something's wrong with them because of the way that they think others view them.
Yeah. And so there's a ton of, so when I see people, especially guys, when I talk to, I run a men's trauma group, and I really, really like that group because if a guy's there, first of all, it's terrifying because as guys, we're not supposed to, feel.
Ask for directions.
Or that, right? There's a lot of different myths about, that we talk about in that group about how guys are always strong and in control and stay cool in the face of danger, or men don't cry, which is a pretty typical one that people hear, or men are always competitive, just various things that we use that allow us to feel like we have to be this way. And so when I see somebody, and especially guys, then I just encourage them I see strength in doing exactly what you don't want to do. You don't want to be here. You have a lot of probably fears about having to talk to somebody else about feelings, and I think it's just a lot more strength in doing what you feel like you would rather not do than it is just doing what you want to do. Because that's easy. At least for me, it is. It's so much easier to do that. And so I think anybody, honestly, myself included, can benefit from therapy at times. Whether it's for going through a small thing, whether it's going through a big thing, it's just everybody can learn if they want to about different things. And I think that's what's great about humanity is we can share experiences and we can learn and grow from them. And one of the things regarding what you're talking, I heard you say anger, Adam. I love talking about anger. So I think that also kind of goes along with emotions as guys, and also especially since there's a high percentage, it's not a hidden fact, that a high percentage of guys play League in comparison to girls, which is a whole other story that maybe we could talk about sometime. That'd be pretty cool too. But that anger is a pretty I would say it's a pretty shallow emotion in the sense of it hides what's really under there. So think of it as it's a mask.
It's an easy emotion.
It is. And when you put on that mask, that's what people see. And as guys, we get respect. We get, because people, fear us, because fear oftentimes is something that, and then we also get to push away whatever it is that we don't want to have to experience. And so it's an easy thing to put out there because then we don't have to deal with it. Because if somebody's afraid, then the situation goes away. But oftentimes under fear is just masking what your actual face really is. And that's, either hurt or I'm sorry, when you have anger, that's a fear deny. When you have anger, that's what really masks what's underneath. So it could be fear, hurt, abandonment, feelings of failure. There is what usually that's what's underneath. And I think it's what League brings out a lot of times. When we're angry, then it's because we feel like we're a failure. We're failing our team. And if we don't have an ability to be okay with times when we're not going to do that well, like with like, for instance, cognitive behavioral therapy, and then the idea is that you're telling yourself, I'm a failure because I did that. No, instead, you're a person who sometimes fails. That's the way that you can change that thought process, because it doesn't all of a sudden encompass you. Just like bipolar doesn't encompass who you are. Maybe it really affects a lot of areas of your life, but you are not bipolar. That's a mental illness that you have, and so does that make sense? Like is that
Yeah. I'm not MS. I just have
correct? Yeah,
it doesn't define me as a person, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so when we feel like, if we're at that top lane ribbon, like you were saying, that I felt it sounded like they did a really good job being able to own that they at that point failed, that they weren't a failure themselves, but that at that point they failed, and they were going to try to do their best to be able to make up for that. And if having that mindset can really change a lot, because then you don't get on tilt as much, because you don't feel like it doesn't have carry over into the game as easily, the next game that you play, and so just kind of having like that focus as to what it is that you can control in that moment, and not applying like these blanket statements to yourself, can really help you a lot whenever you're playing solo queue and whenever you have those type of emotions.
Now, let's say I'll go ahead and use me as an example here. If I decided, not because of reasons, but just because it's the easiest way to talk about this. Now, let's say I decide that I recognize that I have something wrong with me because I played League of Legends, because I've been playing video games. I recognize that I have a rage problem, right? Like I'm masking everything with my anger. Now, if I was to go and talk to somebody, a psychiatrist, about that, how open is that person going to be when I'm actually telling them, this is why I'm getting mad at a video game, I'm getting mad when I do exactly this? Are they going to help me to get better and to recognize if there's something actually wrong, or how does a process like that work? Because I think the reason I bring this up, and just let me, sorry, is that I think there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast that probably need to listen to this advice, and there might be a couple people that we're reaching out to that don't have somebody that they could push them to go speak to somebody about the problem. So I think having you on to talk about this could be really beneficial to them.
Yeah. So one, let me separate two things. A psychiatrist is generally going to be somebody that you go for medication. Okay. Usually than anymore. I think in the past than they were designed a lot more for therapy, but anymore they're strictly for prescribing medication. There could be some random, but for them, at least where I work and where anywhere in the area that I live in, I don't hear of any psychiatrists doing therapy. So usually what you're looking at is either a psychologist or a master's in psychology, either doctor or master's, or like in counseling or in social work. Those are generally people doing therapy. And so
I guess I should have said therapist and not psychiatrist.
No, that's good that you, because it could be maybe one or two or both.
Okay,
that could be beneficial for you. So, let's say it's League that and you're and you recognize there's some issues, or maybe then oftentimes, like in a situation like that, then you kind of start out with a therapist to kind of talk about how many areas of your life is it affecting. Is it just affecting League, or is it affecting your relationships too? Like, how widespread is this? And then you just kind of be able to develop coping skills to help you in those settings, and also learn more about yourself and ways that you can change, kind of like Battle Arena, honestly, but it's a little more personal because it's it's your life. So it's designed to give you opportunities to have a more effective and healthier way at seeing the world and seeing what you experience. And it's not that, and a lot of times too, it's only because we've handled it the way we have, because that's all we've known. And so having an opportunity to learn new techniques, I think is it's normal in life. It's just that when we go through it, in that type of setting, again, there's all that stigma, which is what makes it really hard to do. And so trying not to look at it as something that is wrong about you, but rather just ways that you can learn and grow as a person. So was that what you're like? Do you want the process too of how?
I mean, we can get into the process a little bit if you think it's beneficial. What I'm trying to get out of here is to try to give anybody who is maybe on the edge, who maybe has recognized that they have an issue, but they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And speaking with you and having them go see a therapist or whatever it may be, maybe listen to this podcast, the next step they can take. And like we said, we're here to help in every aspect of League. So.
Yeah, and oftentimes then people think that it has to be like this long period of time. Maybe it's just something that, there's a few sessions, 5-6 sessions, and then you're done. Like it really just depends on the length doesn't necessarily mean that you're, more or less sick. Because, I think because I don't even think that it's necessarily a sickness. Okay, that took that back. In some situations, in a lot of situations, it obviously is, but sometimes it's also just a behavior change. It doesn't necessarily mean that, like it could be a way that you talk to people, and rather than it being something that is innately wrong with brain chemistry, if that makes sense. And so it helps you be able to decide which one is affecting you, whether it's a chemical issue or whether it's a behavioral issue or whether it's both. And that can kind of help you then decide whether you go to, if you need medication too, possibly. So yeah, like I know, like for me, then, I had this one time where, man, I was going through some really, really tough stuff. And, I had to get on some antidepressants for a while because it was really, really tough for me. And I'm a therapist. Like, I know coping skills. Don't get me wrong. But, like, the things I was going through was really tough. So I think it was about 7 or 8 months, then I used it's a SSRI for depression because I was having a lot of anxiety. I just wasn't feeling myself, and I needed something to help me out because the coping skills that I used just wasn't being very beneficial. And so, as a therapist, then those are things like this type of stuff isn't just immune to people to anybody. Like I'm not immune to it. Like it affects everybody. And so if you're wondering if it's something that you need to be able to think about, then, you'll know inside. It's just being aware of whether, like, getting past all the stigma, basically, is the best word to say it. All the possibilities of whether or not, what people think of you, all that kind of stuff. Do your best just to focus on what you know is best for you. Like, what is going to give you the best outcome and help you move forward, because that's going to be the best opportunity for you to be able to either change a behavior or learn more about yourself, or maybe, I don't know, lots of different things. So.
Yeah, I like how you say nobody's immune to it. I pride myself on my ability to not get angry, to be even level-headed and even keel. But sometimes I get upset and frustrated in a game, and it will bleed over into real life. Like, wife will ask me to do something after I just lost 3 games in a row, and I'll be like, and I'll lash out, and then I'll realize
you'll just snap, and then it's like.
And then she gives me the look, and I'm like, "Oh, I messed up." And then
I used to have to go play something or do something else after I got off, like for 10 minutes if I had like a really bad night, because I've been yelled at previously in life because of coming to bed angry or coming upstairs after playing a video game very angry. Hey, dinner's ready. I don't want your fucking dinner. Like that.
Wow, Adam. No. That's when he just smacks the plate out of whoever hands and it goes everywhere.
And then I stop off and go get a beer. No.
But no, it really happens sometimes.
It does.
And you gotta go, whoa, hold on. This is a video game.
Some of the things to look at is, like, how much, if it's like everyone's going to feel depressed sometimes, if a loved one dies or if they have things in their life that are going pretty rough, but if it goes, longer than the clinical time frame is 2 weeks for depression. But if you find it, but there's other factors too, like it has to affect different areas of your life. But those are things to look into. Like, are you maybe, not going to work as much, or you not being able to pay attention, those sort of things. Excuse me. And so knowing is it something like what Adam had just said, doing something for 10 minutes helped you be able to calm down after that. And that's, that's a coping skill that he used, and it sounds like it's working a lot better for him. That's not necessarily. So if you can do those things, then that's awesome. And then, but if you try those things and it's still not working, you try the things it's still not working, and you're seeing it just keep affecting you, and you're not feeling normal, then it might be good to be able to talk to somebody. But because sometimes too, anxiety is, again, if it's affecting you in way too much, then that's one thing. But sometimes anxiety can be a helpful thing too, because it can motivate us to change.
Right.
It's designed there to be something that allows us to say, man, I don't like this feeling. What do I need to change something about my life? And then do it. But if it's affecting you in lots of different areas of your life, that may be when it's gotten out of control. And so that could be something you can look into as well.
Well, they've even shown that like there's a point of diminishing returns with anxiety where it can actually be super beneficial, and then it hits a point where it's crippling, and then you run into the people who have like terror. Like some people get anxious when they're in front, like they're fine in front of a group of 3 to 5 people, and as soon as you put them in a group of 8 to 10, they can't speak their mind anymore. And it affects everybody differently. So yeah,
I'm glad we talked about this, because just going through this conversation kind of opened up my mind a little bit, because there was definitely a point in my life about a year and a half or so ago where I probably should have seen somebody and really talked to them about what I was going through. But learning coping skills and when they actually work out for you, it's just kind of nice to hear some of the things, and going back and throwing it in my own life, so that I have something to look forward to or something to change in the future, how I'm working on coping with anything. So with that said, I'm going to segue this into one final discussion, because Crazy Phil actually brought up an interesting point in chat here. And have you done much or heard much about video game addiction and how it may affect people with League of Legends from that kind of standpoint?
I'm like the guy that runs around. I'm pretty young in comparison to a lot of the therapists there. Like I think there's one more that's younger than me, but she's like a year younger than me. And so other than that, there's probably a good at least 15, if not 20 years minimum of the gap between. So I'm like the guy that runs around like toting video games. I'm like, don't say bad things about video games.
right.
So I think they know to leave me well enough alone, because I think they tried, and I'm just like, no, he's not addicted to video games. It's just that he doesn't have any outlets. So give him other outlets. But I do think that it can be problematic. Like when you're like, anything can be addicting. I would like, if it's causing
everything in
problems
excess.
Everything in excess. If it's causing problems in your relationships, if it's causing problems in your ability to function in your job, at work, that's when that addiction possibility comes in. And so I think it could be potentially an issue. Like, do I think that it happens to every single person that plays a game a lot? No, I don't think it does. Like, I think that again, it's.
What are the? I guess what we talk about. What are the primary signs of addiction? How could you recognize between not having an outlet and actually being addicted to something?
When you have to have it, when it's all that you think about. Like I get.
Right. Okay.
Like, when you can't put it aside, like when it's affecting things like school, when it's affecting things like work, like and relationships, when you the only thing that you focus on is that one thing. Think of it. I think of it a lot as like gambling addiction, because it's not something that you're really necessarily intaking into your body, right? Like with alcohol or with drugs, you can see what it is and the effects once you take it. With gambling, then it's that rush of dopamine that you get. Like when you
after
get
the
that
big win.
after the big win, or that hope for that win, like it's that reinforcement you get every time that you have that win. And so it's kind of one of those things that, like, is it wrong to gamble? No, but if it's causing you to where now you're borrowing money from your family, are you borrowing money from you're like mortgaging your home, like it's really having a large impact on your life. And same thing with League. Like, do you not talk to your friends? Do you, are you not doing like your daily hygiene stuff? Like, are you missing showers for however long because like days or weeks because all you care about is this? Are you giving up sleep? Right.
Right. Neglecting family or loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are, I don't know, like if your grades start to go down, like just things that normally that you'd be good at, all of a sudden are changing in your life, then, and you don't feel, the other thing too is if you don't feel normal without having, like if you don't have that game, if you don't feel normal, if that makes sense to that, right? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, Like,
Well, if
you
you're
don't-
if you're sitting, I guess one thing is if you're sitting with friends, if you're actually able to go out with friends, but you don't feel normal sitting there at
Yeah.
a restaurant with the person you'd rather be.
You
at
gotta
I
home
feel like
text
you
playing
them
have
from
to be
across
going
the
and
table.
playing. Yeah, then those are identifiers. And that's when it's good to go talk to somebody too, because every case is different, and what's the what what's the having another person's point of view that is like a third party that may not be invested can
Right.
be really beneficial, because
I want to,
go
yeah,
ahead.
that worked for me. I'm glad you brought that up because in the past, growing up, even while I was in the army and everything, I have to say I was addicted to playing games on my computer. Different games, I had to do it. People go out to the club, go out doing things. All my friends would be going out, having a good time. Like, I'd rather stay in and play whatever game, black and white at that time. Whatever game was popular. And to the point where it affected relationships and everything. I told my wife in the beginning, I was like, look, I play video games. That's how I de-stress. I don't go to the bars. You don't have to worry about me cheating on you or anything. I'm going to be sitting here playing damn games. But I learned something that helped. I said, if you feel like it's affecting our relationship at all, while I'm in the middle of a game, just say stop. And you don't abuse it. Don't be the boy that cried wolf and say it all the time, but just say stop, and I'll hold the power button for 8 seconds, turn it off, and I'm good to go and walk away. And I will stick to that, I promise, as long as you don't abuse it. And it's worked. She's barely ever had to do it. She's done it maybe twice in the 9 years we've been married. And I just turn it off, and then we're good to go. And she has a peace of mind knowing, okay, he will turn that off. He'll come spend time with me if I feel like it's actually getting in the way of things. So that's a nice. It was a third party on the outside who kind of like slaps it. Hey, wake up! You're letting it get out of hand. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
that helps me.
That's really good. And also too, it could be like someone that maybe like that's a really cool example. I like that one. And then also too, maybe somebody that like, because it sounds like she, like you said, she's really good about making sure that she doesn't abuse it, right?
Right.
I remember, and not to bash my
Because I
parents or
don't
anything,
use.
but
Yeah.
but growing up, like I had a time limit. I was limited to like X amount of time, and that was probably good growing up. Like, don't get me wrong, but there could have been beliefs that I was being, addicted to this game. That's all I wanted to do, and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was like an hour a day. Like, it was horrible. And so
that was mine. It was an hour. I was playing Ultima Online with an hour a day. Try to play an MMO with that.
I was trying to play Age of Empires, and it's like you can't really, like, I can't, like, you can't just play online and then just be done after an hour if you're in this big battle. Like, it doesn't work that way, and they didn't get it. So finally, then I got to have them compress it to where it was like 7 in a week, and I could play it how I wanted to. That helped me out. But anyways, then. Yeah, but like they were invested, right? They were involved in my life. My parents, they're trying to lead me and direct me in ways to try to grow as a youth. And so, what I'm also saying with third party too is someone that maybe isn't invested in you. With DeClaude's example, that's a really healthy way to do it. Like, as in a relationship, but like if you're not sure and like you don't really know if you have somebody that can give you that, because you're think that your parents are crazy and they're just telling you things that aren't realistic, then finding somebody that could maybe give you something that doesn't matter. Like, if you talk to me about it, I don't care how much you play, but like if it's affecting you, then I'll let you know. And so and if it's not, then I'll try to give you some ways to be able to talk to your parents about it, or whatever it could be, to be able to express the things that you're concerned about. So but I can relate to you, DeClaude, because like when I got married to my wife, this was the one rule that she gave me was that I can't play WoW. Because she was like, I know this will ruin our relationship. I'm like, you're a wise woman.
Yeah, right.
Because you're probably
that's
right.
when you just get her to play it first, and then you're set.
Yeah, then you play together.
She's not into video games at all, which is fine. Which is very it's very nice that she still lets me play as much as I do. But yeah, that was the one I was like, yeah, that's probably pretty legit. Because I remember when I was going through my internship, that the lady that was doing my intern, then she was like, WoW is designed to be addictive, and I was like, well, it probably is, but like that doesn't mean that everyone has to be addicted to it. So to kind of come back to what you asked before, then I guess in the past I have, but I think recently then there's been more kind of like the stigma with mental illness. Then with video games, it's been less and less people blaming that for problems.
I think we have to wrap this up a little bit because we are pushing over our time limit quite a bit. I know Claude probably has to stand.
Speaking
out
of the
here.
wife.
Yeah, give it to the stink eye. Can you recommend where people can go to look on the internet for help if they need help? And do you have any sites that you could give us? We can just put in the description after the fact if you can't give us any in the MP3. With all this discussion, I think it'd be great to have, a number somebody could call or something.
Yes, NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, I think that's a really good place to start. They should be able to give. I don't have to go there as often, so I don't really know it really well off the top of my head, to be honest.
Well, if you don't know anything off the top of your head, if you have
no,
some
NAMI is good. I just don't know what they have. I think what I was going to say is I think they have an ability. I'm going to look at my phone real quick to be able to search in your area for what's available in terms of people you could talk to or organizations like that. But yeah, that's a really good place to start, and you may be able to get a lot of information about places in your area that you could do that. And then also, man, let me see. They have. I should have brought out my mental health first aid stuff because there's tons of stuff in there, and
well, certain states even have like hotlines you can call. Like I know Ohio has like a 211 sort of thing where if you stay on the line for a certain amount of time, it'll bring up okay. So Ohio, for example, we have 211 hands-on, which basically anybody can call at any time, and basically if they're having a medical issue, whether it be like a mental health issue or anything else, they can ask for what's available in their area, and if they give out their address, they'll even tell them what the nearest things like close to them are. And since a lot of it, like at least for this, are kind of more, it's more for helping people of a lower socioeconomic status find help that might not know where to look otherwise or don't have like access to the internet or something like that, but they will help anybody. So like, again, it's different from state to state, but there's a lot of information out there. It's just most people don't know how to look for it.
Right.
But
that's why I think what I'll do is I'll ping Chris after we're done, and I'll try to get some more information for you, Chris, and we'll put it in the description on Reddit so people can find it if they need it. Because I want to wrap this up right now and end this podcast. So, Chris, thanks a ton for coming on. I know
thanks for having me.
The end of this podcast definitely took a different turn, but I hope it was. I hope everything was very beneficial. People understand why we do Battle Arena, why you need to take care of yourself mentally and physically and everything else. So, I think that's it. That's episode number 249 of the Trinity Force podcast. Thanks again, Chris, for coming on, guys. We will see you for episode number 250 on Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
See ya.